Hey there, Internet! Welcome to the Hard On Gear channel, where I discuss and review my used and abused knives and gear, so that you know what is or isn't worth spending your hard-earned money on. If you've thought about getting a knife for a father in your life and you don't know where to start, hopefully this video will get you part of the way there. Since I'm a little more of a knife guy and a knife enthusiast, I can't really give you the opinion of an everyday sort of average male who's working outside doing outdoor tasks or working in the trades. So I have brought along my father, who we are going to call for this video Father H.O.G. So we had H.O.G mom on here about a month or so ago to discuss what the average woman who doesn't really use knives would like. If she were to carry some kind of a knife on her, what would she prefer? So for today, Father H.O.G, give us a quick little rundown of your work background. What have you been doing? How long have you been doing it?
I'm an electrician, and I'm going into my 40th year in the trade.
As far as knives and your use of knives, preference of knives?
Not really a knife enthusiast, so I've never really went out of my way looking for any kind of particular knife other than one, which I'll probably mention a little bit into the video here, that's specific for our work. But as far as at work, I actually don't use a knife a whole lot. We use wire strippers and different tools. There are times where we do use a knife for certain cables, just to skin like an outer jacket off of them. And I can do it with just about anything. Some places I just use like a open knife, razor type knife, or just a plain old simple knife for opening boxes and stuff like that. Yeah, as far as work, that's about it.
Okay, and in your regular personal life, if you're just walking around, going to the store, or just outside in the garage, you're not really normally carrying much on you?
No, I'm not a everyday carry kind of guy. I just don't like a lot of stuff in my pockets between keys and a lighter and different things. I use a knife so rarely. I don't worry so much about protection just out in everyday life around the area where we live. Back when I used to do a little more hunting and stuff, I just, again, no particular knife. I just use something similar along like this or this, just a plain old fixed blade for dressing an animal. Other than that, like I said, sadly, I probably fit in better on the Mother's Day video when it comes to knives.
That's funny. You're a person who carries and uses things for function. You could pretty much give a damn how things look or if things are cheap or expensive, so long as you can do whatever you need to do. And I'd say you're more of like a minimalist type person, where I'm a bit of a gear nerd and I like to have a lot of extra stuff if I can find a purpose for it. But in anything you do that I've noticed, you don't tend to, aside from the electrical trade where you need certain tools, you don't carry a lot of stuff on you, you don't have things dangling off you. You like to go in with the minimum amount of stuff that you need to get the job done.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if there's one preference, I would say I do prefer a locking blade when it comes to a folding knife. That makes me very nervous if they don't lock.
That's a very common thing with people who actually use their knives for work tasks. If you're just cutting a piece of paper once in a while, a slip joint knife isn't that big of a deal. If you're twisting and you were to push with your thumb, you could still potentially close that on you accidentally. Not a great time. So that's a pretty good start, just generally speaking. Not a knife guy, not a knife enthusiast. You don't spend hours on YouTube watching knife videos. So pretty much everything on this table aren't really things that you've spent any time looking at, aside from maybe my videos or just me talking about them over the last few years or months or whatever. So this isn't a representation of all the different knives you're going to see, but this is just most of my collection, at least the ones that I think are applicable to this. There are some different things out there that you might have more interest in, but just for the sake of this video, we'll talk about what we're looking at here. Right off the hop, what are the things that are standing out to you that you just do not like and you cannot see yourself ever using?
There's nothing here that I'd say I don't like, but I look more at, I guess, to look at that be more practicality, different environments I'm in, what would I use? I've never been one for carrying a knife, trying to walk through thick bush, but obviously something closer to a machete style. I can see myself using that just to clear some limbs and things away. If I were in the woods on the tractor doing something, stuff like that, I'd look more towards probably like a multi-tool in case I needed a couple little gadgets on that. But nothing like, I mean, they're all interesting. I don't hate knives, I'm just not an enthusiast. But like I said, for me, the main thing is if I had to grab a knife right now to do something, depending on what I was doing. If I was just trying to open up a box or piece of paper, I'd grab any one of these fixed blades just to slice the tape. And if I was going to do any kind of real aggressive cutting or anything, again, I definitely want a locking blade, but nothing really jumps out to me.
Okay, so nothing awful right here off the bat that you'd never use.
Nope.
Okay, this says the CRKT Chance and Hell Bolo. So you said, yeah, pretty likely you would use something like this, some kind of an axe or machete. Things that I've definitely used the most on this table are these big choppers. And that just to make some room so you can show me, what do you typically carry? So on that other end of the spectrum, things that you actually use, the things that, of all the different knives that you've got over the years, why don't you just show me a few of the things that you've had and what you actually carry on you?
Well, when you asked me to do this, I sort of procrastinated. I have knives in every corner. Like I said, 40 years in the trade, and it's a lot of knives are just gifts or whatever I picked up Canadian Tire or any kind of local stores. I have a lot of little knives that were given as gifts or little tokens and things. Actually, I'll show you a couple of them. Different ones that we picked up, like one of our electrical unit I belong to gave out for different milestones. And I sort of had a tendency for years to keep these as mementos, even though I never see them, I can never find them. Another one here that I don't know if you don't want to talk about it or not, but that's another gift that I just didn't want to use. But the one gift that I did decide to start using because I needed a knife again, I didn't have a decent knife. One of the ones I collected I thought the most of because of the emergency services I'm in was one of a pretty big mass casualty event. A few months later, the country that it was from was sending out a lot of gifts. They sent out a Swiss Army knife with just a thank you on the back and a couple things. And for years I didn't want to use it, and I thought, well, I have all these knives that are stuffed in corners and buried away, and I'm never using them. I'm probably never going to actually even display them or anything. So I thought, well, Swiss Army knives are one of the handiest tools. This is a pretty simple one, but I thought, why not try it and start carrying it? So I've been carrying it now for a couple of years, and it's, other than the fact that it doesn't lock, it's still pretty stiff, and I just be careful what I do with it. Most of my work is pulling this way, skinning wires, or pushing away. I don't do a lot of pushing this way, so I'm not too concerned, and opening boxes. So I have found this one to be about the most functional one, nice and small in my pocket. I hardly even notice it. In my pocket for a year or two, and I'll probably continue to carry that one.
Then you're just carrying that in your front jeans pocket normally, just letting it sit in the bottom. Yeah. But so I was curious because Victorinox is the actual company that makes Swiss Army knives. After doing a little bit of looking around, and if you look on the actual blade, you will see it is indeed a Victorinox knife. It's just the Swiss Air thing was because of maybe the particular incident or something. Do you remember exactly why that was on there?
So that Swiss Air was the incident we were at. It was a plane that went down, and me being involved in the local ground search and rescue. We spent a few days helping search for any survivors or the other things that we were searching for, and this was like a thank you from Swiss Air that they sent out to us.
That made a lot more sense to me afterwards, because every other Swiss Army knife that you're going to see like this would typically have like a Victorinox or maybe just the Swiss Army, the Victorinox logo. I thought it was a knockoff at first, but that is indeed a Victorinox compact with just those few tools on it. So a little bit more of a minimalist, not too fancy version of the Swiss Army knife. What do you actually use on that? Pretty much just the knife, corkscrew for anything at all?
Yeah, pretty much. I actually have used a corkscrew a couple times just because I needed a fine point, improvising, and that's about it. I'm not a big drinker, so I don't use it to pop a lot of corks.
Nor do wine drinkers for some reason ever end up using them, so that's interesting that you found some use for it.
Yeah, so the main blade is probably the one I use the most. Okay. When it gets a little bit dull, sometimes I'll flip over and use the smaller one, but that is pretty much the main one that I grab all the time. As far as the other gadgets on here, I just don't really find any reason to use them. Yeah. Even down to the little toothpick that's in here.
Right, yeah, which is good that you know that's a toothpick, because that is a little hidden feature some people miss. So yeah, no, pretty handy. And I've the first time you got me to sharpen this, I will say you use the crap out of it, and you certainly do dull it down. These aren't super hard steel, so they will dull down quickly.
And it is due again, so I've been using a smaller blade for things that I need. Different wires I skin have different thicknesses, and sometimes you need a dull knife. If it's a soft outer jacket, I want a duller knife so I can gauge it easier. If it's too sharp, you can go through that jacket into the one that actually coats the wire.
Right.
So sometimes a duller blade is a little better, sometimes a sharper one if it's a really hard insulation.
Right, which is something you've said before with different knives I've had where you're like, too sharp, which is funny to me because I would always want my knives to be razor sharp as long as I can keep them that way. And I will say right quick that this is, if anyone notices, a Groman D.H. Russell folding knife. That is a lockback from a company, the same company that makes that D.H. Russell #1 design belt knife. So just not a bad little design here. Not a super expensive knife, but definitely really good quality for a gift that they gave you. This last little old thing that I wouldn't have any idea what this thing is for or what its intended purpose was.
So this is an actual electrician's knife. I used this for many, many years. I don't know why I really stopped. It's taken a lot of abuse. It's taken some pretty rough sharpenings. I'm not a knife enthusiast, and I sharpen by necessity. I've used everything from a file and a grinder on this because it is a thick blade.
Yeah, you wouldn't be part of the baby boomer generation if you didn't use a grinder on your freaking knives.
And this typically is exactly what I described. It's not meant to be razor sharp. It's got that hook so that I wish I should have almost had a piece of cable and I could have showed you, but it's good for hooking the tip of it in under the jacket of a cable, and it'll stay underneath with that hook, and it takes a while to get the feel, but you can slide it right up a cable. Again, to me, this knife, I never liked it when it was really super sharp. That's why I do such a crude sharpening job, just to get enough edge back on it.
Just bites in too hard.
This is a lock blade, by the way, which gives you a
cool.
little extra security.
So first impressions, just looking right now, if you had to pick one folding knife.
I would think I would lean more towards something that is similar. Not being biased here, it's just this type of knife is, these are all fancy looking everything. Like I said, I'm not a big knife enthusiast, so I'm just for practicality, what I need in the moment for what little bit I do. So I'm going to grab this one. I can say it's not really biased, but it is. My son here's been doing these videos. I've been watching him, and I know if you've watched any of them, you'll see he's told a few stories about how this knife came about, and it actually jarred up some of my memories. I forgot I gave it to him. Years ago when I was very young, my mother had bought these knives. I don't know what the occasion was, but she had bought a few of them back in the day. Avon was the thing before internet. Quite sure that's where she bought these. This was just a handy knife. It was a gift from my mom. I didn't keep this one in a box. At the time I probably didn't have a knife, and it's a good locking blade, and it was a practical knife for me to carry around. So I had it for years, and then I got, like I said, I don't carry knives often, and I didn't remember I had done this until I watched some of his previous videos that I had gave it to him, and then I remembered, that's right. I'm not sure why. I think he had a bit of an interest in knives probably when he was about 5, 6, 7. But what I do remember, I don't know if it would have been your original or this one, but since you had such a passion and to play with that knife, and you were only 6 or 7, I had concerns. I intentionally dulled it down. I dulled it down so it was like a butter knife, and I forgot all about that. And that was your toy to play with. You couldn't cut much with it, but you had a lot. I do remember you had a lot of fun, and you carried that knife with you and played with that a long time. And I had forgotten all about this until I seen it in that video.
That's funny.
So that's the type of knife I always went for, just plain simple. Since watching all of your videos and the reviews on these knives, I can see how easily somebody could get into it. It just hasn't really grabbed me. I'm learning a lot from them. Yeah. But it's your hobby, not mine, and I'm enjoying watching how much work you're putting into it, and I'm just reaping the benefits of watching the videos and learning a lot about them. So.
Hey, well, that's the goal. Awesome.
Yeah.
And that is very similar to the Buck 110, like probably the most classic folding knife of your generation. Looking at these fixed blades, what is probably the one that you would most likely use if you had to pick one for going hunting or working around the woods?
Well, that's two different questions, I guess. If I was going to be trying to clear a lot of foliage and limbs and smaller limbs and stuff, I'd probably go for something a little heavier, but that would be the only time and the only reason. To me, not being a knife enthusiast and real comfortable, that's a lot more than what I need in my hand for what I'm going to be doing. So if I was just looking for a good sturdy fixed blade, I'd be looking probably around this size. That one, the handle's a bit small. I don't really like that. And I don't know, it's not, I guess it's balanced okay. I'm not a knife enthusiast, so I don't know how to explain what I'm feeling, but that's definitely not one. That is not a bad grip. It's not perfect in my grip, but that I could see for doing a couple small things I was gonna do, or even that one, yeah. It would be a toss-up between those two, I guess. This one I do like the notch here for the forefinger. I think almost with that handle, with that blade, would be the combination that I would be drawn to. The sad part about that is, if I had one of these knives, it would probably stay in the drawer and I'd never have it when I need it. Because again, I just don't like a lot of things on me when I'm moving around.
You don't like having a Leatherman on your hip, which is a big reason why you've never carried a full-size one. So I can't imagine carrying a 9-inch K-bar knife on your side with a sheath like this. I see you getting sick of that real quick. So when you stare at the ceiling at night and you're picturing hypothetical coyote and bear attacks, what kind of knife do you think you'd be carrying? Everybody does that, right?
Yeah, yeah. For the first time right now, actually.
Good
Again,
headspace to get yourself in.
Definitely, for something like that, I'd be looking probably at stabbing more than slicing.
Hey, good intuition there.
So something that's going to penetrate thick hide. So obviously it's going to be a fixed blade or a really strong locking blade.
Yeah.
And I'd want something, again, with some meat. I don't know, I guess I'd be coming back to these.
Yeah.
And again, this one, I think the grip would be perfect because I could do whatever I need to do here or here.
Yeah.
I'm not big into all the different, and I could see that being for my protection, and I'd have to be in a weird position, actually change and have to do it this way, which feels like it would have a lot more power, but at the same time, this would be the one that I would want to.
So you want to be comfortable with that.
I just feel like that almost naturally feels like part of my hand more than the other two here that I had picked out at first.
Right on. I'm sure I've already plugged a bunch of things on top of you when you were talking about how much you love this knife, because I can't wait to throw this knife in the freaking ocean one day. But it's actually, well, this is a cheap knockoff Bear Grylls collaboration. It's very similar to the Gerber Strong Arm or the Gerber LMF1, which are both military issued Gerber knives. So very similar to this, very utilitarian for pretty much anything you'd need, also would be handy for those situations. So while I'll be making fun of this knife in particular, it's very similar to those very popular Gerber designs. And this being the K-Bar USMC, this is carried by probably more militaries than almost any knife in the world. That's just a random statement. Somebody fact check me on that and comment below. And I guess last random question before we narrow down like your top 5. I know you're only interested in knives that you would actually use and have function for, but as far as aesthetics go, if you had to look at a knife that you think like this is a knife that I wouldn't want to scuff up too much, but if I were carrying something that I just wanted to say for a collector's purpose or something that actually appeals to you aesthetically, if you had to pick one. Right, outside of your zone here.
Well, here, even though I'm not into knives, I've always been very mechanically inclined. Grew up in a rural area, not a lot of money, played with sticks and everything, and I'm fascinated by things that were out of my reach. So this one keeps drawing my attention because even though we're not allowed them in Canada, this is the closest I could ever see. I'm guessing how this works, so I've seen you operate it, to a switchblade.
Yeah.
We were kids, we were always fascinated with switchblades, but you could never have one.
Me too.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't even know how to...
Liner lock, actually. So what you just did, there's actually a double lock feature
so that
on
locks it open?
That double locks it open so that the liner lock can't slide. So if you look on the inside, you'll see the...
Okay.
Yeah. There's a little liner lock there. Yeah.
So just because that one looks, and it brings you back to your childhood. I'm 55 years old, and it brings back those days when me and my friends were playing with whatever, and you could...
Watching 80s
If you could find anything that would flip
Yeah.
open, you could pretend it was a switchblade.
Yeah.
And that's why that one sort of grabbed my attention, because it just looks cool from my childhood, something that I've always would like to have had. And the second one that's grabbing my eye, only because it's cool. It looks so high-tech, futuristic almost. Like that looks like it's made out of titanium or something like that. And it's just looks like a really...
Another flipper.
High-tech kind of knife, right? So I don't know...
Yeah, that's funny.
How else to describe it, but for some reason, that's drawn my attention just because it's almost like a switchblade style. This because it looks like it's such a... I can't come up with the words. I'm an electrician, not an English major. I'm obviously not a knife enthusiast because I really got to look hard at doing this without losing a finger and getting stitches in this video.
Yeah. So that's hilarious. So this is a knife that general non-knife people seem to be gravitating towards, that CRKT M16. Okay, so now we know pretty much everything about your general knife preferences. So now we're going to narrow it down to a top 5.
Then I'll have to go with this one because this is what I've been using. It's the perfect size. It gets me by with what I need. I don't even notice it in my pocket. So that's what I've been carrying as an everyday carry. Not that I'm an everyday carry person. I don't carry a lot on the weekends, but at work. But there are times when I'm going out and I think I might need my knife, and that's what I've been throwing in my pocket. So I would be taking that for one of the 5. This, I've never seen this. It's interesting. It's obviously got a lot on it. If I were still actively involved in ground search or something, I could see myself carrying that, just so I don't have to carry a whole toolbox full of tools. I'm sure that's got a lot of things I could make do with. I'm not heavily involved in that environment right now, but if I were, that would be an interesting knife. I just wouldn't carry it with me unless I was going out with the intent that I might need it. So I guess I'll leave that in there. I do spend a lot of time in the woods, working in the woods on my own woodland and stuff. So again, not that I would carry it, but if I thought I was going to need one, I'd go back to one of these, and I'd have to still gravitate towards this. I like to see maybe a little longer blade on it, but for comfort, That would probably be one for sure.
Yeah, no, it's
the
funny.
feel. And
Yes.
I really like the feel of that one.
You're less concerned about marketing gimmicks behind Bear Grylls and Gerber.
Yep.
Yeah, funny enough.
Maybe get a kickback from them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one my mom gave me, but obviously I didn't take care of it. It was just back in the day, it was nothing special. Oh, cool, she gave me a lock and blade knife, and I used it all my life. Right around 45 years later, it's still around because I had given it to my son here, and he took care of it. So now a little bit of nostalgia is coming back.
Yeah.
But this is a typical style of knife that years and years and years ago I did try carrying this on my side in a pouch. So it's there for convenience at work or in the woods or anything.
Yep.
But it just never grew on me. That's why I stopped doing that. But I'll pick this one only because I'm familiar with it. I'm sure you have a lot of other locking blades, but I don't really have a preference until I'd handle them. So I don't know if you want me to take a lot of time handling every one right now.
Yeah,
but
I'd say you've got your 4 major ones that stuck out to you right off the bat. And if you want to handle everything on the table once through just so you get a good
Sure.
idea.
Like that's a nice light knife for sure. I would be looking more towards the ease of opening and closing. I'm not sure I really like this type compared to this
Lockback.
type.
Yeah, so that's a lockback versus a liner lock.
Yeah, I don't know why. Even though these fingers are in the way, I just feel more comfortable in having that thumb that close to the hinge. I feel more comfortable with it being back here and then get my fingers clear of it.
Many do.
This is feels like a good quality knife for what it is. I just don't like a handle that small in my hand.
Me either.
Even though this isn't that much bigger, this actually feels more comfortable in my hand than this guy.
Same exact thing as a liner lock, except it's the entire frame that you have to push outwards. It's pretty stiff too, because I don't really use it because I don't like it. But if you stick your thumb on the inside of it and then push out, see how that frame locks behind the blade?
Okay.
Yeah. Boom.
That one's too small.
Yeah, yeah.
That right there looks like my size and style. I've never had one that you could do that with. I could see where the second nature, whatever, subconscious to do that just sort of feels
Muscle
right.
memory kind of gets there after a while.
So-
If that one was made in a lockback, it might be a little bit more preferable.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not totally against them. I just never had too many like that. Most of mine had the lock here, so I guess it's what I'm used to.
The Rat Model 2 is one of the most popular folding knives ever. The Rat Model 1 is a bigger version about that size.
That's not terrible. It's not perfect in my hand, but it's more comfortable than some of the smaller ones.
Yeah, that Benchmade 940 is definitely, again, one of the most popular knives ever.
Yeah.
One that I carry a lot.
This guy looks like, now that's not a bad, even though it's narrow,
Uh-huh.
the depth here, I guess, is what seems to fit my hand. If it's too small, my hand doesn't seem to want to squeeze it, but that
Once
one,
you bear down on something,
Yeah.
it's moving around on you.
so that one's a bit narrow this way, but it's really nice that way.
Kershaw Blur and M4 steel. And I'll just get you to open that with the assisted opening because that is a, spring assisted knife.
Ooh, I might have just found a new toy.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
That's as close as you can get to a switchblade.
And that's,
Instead of pushing
Yeah.
a slide button here, I mean, that flies open.
as long as the deployment is done with the blade through a flipper or a thumb stud, it's legal.
If you just look over that way for a minute while I slip this
Yeah,
in my pocket,
yeah.
and you won't notice it gone.
Yeah,
But
those
no,
are pretty
that's
fancy.
actually a nice little, I've seen you with these, and I've seen you do a review on that and talk about it in your videos, but I've never really picked it up.
Yeah, that's the newest folder, so, yep.
That almost looks like a good, rugged, heavy use.
That's what I've been carrying on my fire belt for years. It's a hunk of junk and it's cheap, but it
actually,
lasts.
that's similar, just a smaller
Been
version.
used as a hammer. Actually, yeah, they came together as a 2-pack.
Is that meant to flip open this way?
Yep.
See, my fear there would be that without knowing it, it might spring back on my fingers as I start to change my grip. But yeah, that's not terrible. I've already had that one. This guy, I don't think I've...
Yeah, there's my EDC, the Manix 2.
Again, I've never had one to open that way. And I will say this, 55 years of my life, all of my friends were always getting hurt. I don't know why, I've always had it second nature. I guess being hands-on since I could barely walk, always out playing with sticks and stuff, I've learned how easy it is to get hurt. So I'm very cautious. I don't do things clumsily. I'm subconsciously always very, very careful.
Oh, I'm sure when you see me fidget the way I do, you must be thinking, I can't wait till you cut yourself, you dumb bastard.
No, it's just your fingers, not mine. I just don't want to see blood all over the place.
Yeah, fair enough.
But then again, I don't mind patching you up after.
No, good first aid practice.
I can't see much use for that unless it was, I guess, the thickness here. That looks like it'd be really rugged if you wanted to cut into something heavy, but and I hope none of the guys I work with see this because they'll paint me up with lipstick if they see how I'm struggling to figure out the mechanics of some of these knives.
I bet you they'd be doing just as good.
Oh, okay, that one doesn't lock.
Yeah, that's a slip joint, the only one I own, actually.
So, yeah, I think I've covered most of them. I've had that one.
Yeah, did you handle that? That was the very, maybe, that was the very first
Yeah.
folding knife I ever picked up, that I ever bought myself. And holy smokes, as I'm editing, I realized I did not get him to handle the Recon 1, so really quickly, could you let me know what you think of this knife?
It's a nice light knife. Like I said, the grip is good. It's just a little bit narrow, but actually it's not a bad knife. Don't take my finger off with it.
Hey, good. That's a pretty good handle of the triad lock. I'm going to handle these, the fixed blades.
Honestly, I don't see any enthusiasm with something like that. To me, this is almost something you'd see in a martial arts kind of movie that's very easy to conceal and small, and you just...
The backup blade.
Yeah. Yeah, one that you'd have tucked in, nobody'd ever find it.
The SC Azula #2.
Yeah.
My EDC.
Again, I don't know of many practical uses because I only use a knife for a couple things, and I already said what my preferences are and why. So, without being exposed to a lot of different situations where I'd use a knife, I can't see that I'd have a preference on any of these. But as far as just comfort, that's not a terrible knife to hold on to. I see no use for this other than learning to twirl it.
Yeah, and likely cut yourself while doing so.
Yeah, take out an eye.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You take an eye out, Mom would say. I guess that's supposed to be held that way.
Yeah, a retention ring. It's if you were to be doing things where you didn't want to drop it, whatever those things might be.
Already handled that. This bad boy here, that looks like something that you'd see in an old black and white martial arts kind of movie. Not something that I would really gravitate towards for some reason. I don't see any practical use for me to use that. This guy, it looks like just some sort of a specialty kitchen tool to me. I don't see, or maybe somebody's line of work that requires, like, I shocked scallops when I was young.
Yes.
You would never know what a scallop knife is if you saw it. We made them out of butter knives and a piece of heater hose. Right. Yeah, that to me has a special purpose with the curve and just the way it's made. I would not have a clue what or why, but so in my life, I couldn't see myself using that unless I knew what it was for and said, hey, I can incorporate that into something I do. And
that Groman knife design is pretty unique. It's meant to be a hunting, skinning, outdoor knife. A lot of guys are a really big fan of this reverse curve. If you want to try a cheaper version of this, there's a $20 cold steel Canadian belt knife. You can find that in an Amazon link down below.
That looks like just a very common standard. I don't see any special features on that knife other than it's just a knife with I like the handle, like it's a good beefy handle. I don't like a small handle. I like something that I feel comfortable. I don't have to struggle and think about the grip. That I can grab it. I don't even have to think about.
Very natural.
Yeah.
That is probably the single most popular outdoor bushcraft knife in the world. It's a $20 more companion knife.
This, although I worked in a lot of different industries when I was young, I worked a little bit in fish plants and stuff, but not actually cutting ground fish, just herring, and a herring knife again. A herring knife is very similar to, what did I see? Something like this. Maybe that style.
Gotcha. Stocky blade.
Yeah. That is getting closer to a fish cutter's knife. They have a fairly long, narrow blade for cutting fillets, a filleting knife. Other than that, this seems to be more of a common knife that I would have seen when I was young around that people used to carry.
Yeah.
And this guy, I don't know, I guess if I'm going hunting black bear.
Yes. With a knife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
starring in the next Rambo movie.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Just to look cool. As far as multi-tool knives, like I said, I don't carry them a lot because being a mechanically inclined guy, always out around the garage, I have a lot of tools laying around everywhere. Pliers, different screwdrivers, different things I need. I'd have to be going somewhere where I'm trying to go light and have something that'll get me out of certain pinches before I'd ever really gravitate towards this type of thing. I have no problem leaving one in the car, but 99% of the time it never gets used because I have a better tool to use. But to have in a pinch, just to know in the back of my mind I do have it there, that would be about it.
And I am curious, so there's these two, this is pliers on this one, scissors on that one. I was tempted to, but I don't think you would use it. There's another version, the Squirt this is the PS4, they have the ES4, which is actually an electrician's tool. It's the same exact tool, except it's got like 4 different gauges of wire strippers within that tool. But I've got to assume you're gonna have good sets of wire strippers on you like anytime you're doing that. So I don't know, well, I'm just gonna go do some random electrical work on the weekend and I'm not gonna have my tools on me that you'd actually use it. But that's just my thought on it.
on the job, I typically like individual tools, but if I were going to climb up on a roof or something, up a ladder where I don't want a lot of tools on me, that's where I'll use a multi-tool. This is one of the ones that we use. It's 11-in-1 screwdriver. It's got 11 different functions in it, everything from nut drivers for opening up equipment if I get on a roof, to a screwdriver of every type. So that would cover, instead of me trying to guess what type of screws I'm going to need, that's one of the multi-tools that I do use. I can very quickly just reach back in my back pocket and within a split second, I know which one it is just from the field.
Gotcha.
Because 40 years, 40 hours a week is part of me, those tools.
Gotcha. Just different concept of how we carry things and why we do things. Okay, interesting.
So for me, on the job, before I'd carry something like this, there's not many tasks I cannot do with this and a pair of pliers. And I can even strip a lot of wires with a pair of pliers.
Yep.
So this, and I didn't bring my 9-inch linesman's, I can do pretty much any electrical job as long as I don't need a hacksaw with those tools.
Gotcha.
And again, I'm not one to carry any more than I have to. I'll find, as I'm going, I'm throwing tools in my back pocket and it's way too many. And I'm like, why am I carrying? I don't even need half these anymore. But I'm just, I don't know, simple, light, not bulky. I'm not like this guy next to me preparing for the apocalypse and making sure I've got in most aspects of my life I do that. However, through 55 years of living, I've found ways to make these very functional in most situations. This is more the size. If I wanted a multi-tool, I can actually do stuff with this. If I get a splinter in my finger in the woods, I'll live with it. I'm not pulling that out to dig that splinter out. If I drive a stick through my finger, that's what I want.
Sure. Hey, interesting. That's a good point.
So,
and I've struggled with small tasks with this actually.
Yeah, I'm not putting my makeup on in the woods, so I don't really want that.
Sure. And now that you've handled every single one of these knives, and if you had to add one more to pick to that final 5,
I'm not sure. I gotta just grab a couple.
Yep. Take some time.
I'm thinking. I like that bad boy right there.
Yeah, it was just funny. Yeah, I never would have thought that you'd enjoy the gimmick so much. It's not really a gimmick. It's actually quite functional.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. If I got something here, and it's like shit. I don't want to let go of this and leave my knife. That opens so easy to do what I need to do.
And the nice thing, if you're right-handed with a liner lock, you can actually close it with one hand fairly easily if you had to.
If I didn't want to get blood all over your yellow mat, I'd even try that, but I think I'll play it safe for today. This is more of a novelty thing because it's cool looking and everything else, but I don't really see the practicality of that for me. And it's a bit small in the hand.
It's my sentiments exactly on that knife. Although many people have been commenting in the Cold Steel Luzon video how they actually do use this. I will be very, very soon doing a video where I beat the crap out of this, and we'll find out exactly what it can be used for.
I guess I'm just so set in my ways, old school. This looks cool and everything else, but for what I do, I just go back to everyday life and practicality, and these are plain old stuff. I don't know. These are nice, fancy, pretty knives. I think they're awesome. I think they're cool. This is what I would gravitate to. And that makes sense. Amazon links for all of these will be down in the description below. That's essentially a non-Leatherman brand multi-tool, but any kind of a Leatherman or Gerber multi-tool, anything like that, could be slid in that slot just as easily. Then this Gerber Bear Grylls collaboration, but we'll say the Gerber Strong Arm Fixed Blade will be something closer to that, but we'll say that I hate to give that any kind of credit. Then the Victorinox Swiss Army knife, or a Victorinox Compact, specifically in this case. And we'll call it the Buck 110, but it's a Buck 110 knockoff, but again, very popular old school knife. And then funny enough, we go from all this old school practical and or minimalist stuff to the Kershaw Blur with the assisted open. So interesting top 5. You've definitely seen the Mother's Day video, and you probably know the conclusion of this anyways. You've probably been thinking, what knife am I probably getting for Father's Day? So funny enough, I didn't do the intro portion. I wanted to make this nice and organic, but remembering our conversations and asking different knife preferences and stuff, if you would reach under your left side, the corner of the table here, sir. There, there it is. We'll see how well he actually knows me. Yeah,
and we're in the ballpark anyways, and I switched the pocket clip around so it's in the right spot too. But so there's the Wrap Model 2.
That is, yeah.
Which, funny enough, it ended up being the first one you did grab. So within that decent.
Don't flip it because it seems kind of stiff.
Yeah, it's brand spanking new. So it's the big difference between that one and this one, other than the fact that this is Coyote and that's black, is that this is the D2 steel, which will be sharp for a long time after you use it. That's AUS 8, which is more similar to the Recon 1, which I've used for many years as a work knife. It dulls easy enough, but it sharpens up super easy. There's another knife that I'm going to pick you up at some point, which is probably a lot more up your alley for what I think you'll use. It's not anything you've been used to before, but that's as close to a typical popular folding knife that I think you would actually use. Also, it's got a pocket clip on it, which I know you've never carried a pocket clip knife in your pocket the way that we typically do as knife people. So I'd be interested to see if you could try that for a little bit and just let me know your feedback and let me know if you think you actually find some purpose in it.
What I don't like about it is it takes a lot more self-awareness when I'm using it because it's not a lock blade.
Yeah.
Any knife I carried when I was young was always a lock blade.
Yep.
I've seen it happen to my dad when we grew up in a house we were renovating all the time, and I seen him doing something and it folded on his finger and stitches, and it just makes me cringe every time I think of it happening. I like the security of a lock blade.
Yep.
So yeah, I could definitely see you done well. That's about the right size, the right function. I'd be looking forward to giving it a try, and I do like being able to open it like that with one hand easily if one hand is tied up.
Sure.
I'm going to be a little bit cautious learning to close it with one hand.
As you should.
And if you want to try again to get it right, we can do a birthday video next month. It is my birthday coming up next month.
It is, and it's funny enough because that's actually the knife that I'm thinking about picking up that I was going to do for this first one. I think you're going to use the other one more, but I wanted to pick you up one that was a little bit more of like something a little more popular and generic because you're not a generic knife kind of guy. So we'll see how that goes, but I think the birthday knife might be the winner.
So the decision now, I'll still be carrying this because like I said, I do end up using this a lot. And I have used the corkscrew. So stupid little thing, but again, everybody finds their own use for certain things. I don't drink wine.
Yeah.
I don't pop a lot of corks. This has been handy for this. This is magnetic and it holds a self-tapping 5/16 head socket head screw. When you get a couple chunks of steel, it's sideways and you try and drill and it's wobbling and it's the most aggravating. Years ago, I used to chew gum a lot. I'd use gum
pull it out.
to pull all them pieces out. I don't chew gum anymore. I have found myself using the corkscrew for that. Just getting some of those filings out where I can dig them out.
Random.
Now, am I weird or what? Because most people actually use that for a corkscrew.
In the knife community, so many people have these and nobody uses the corkscrews for corkscrews. They find weird, dumb stuff like that to use them for.
But I do, like I said, there's not a lot that I do this. I'm pretty comfortable with this knife, but just the security of having a lock blade again, I will give that a try. Sad part is, again, nostalgia. Yeah, I keep things and I put them aside, never use them. This being a gift from you for Father's Day, I hate like hell to actually use it practically.
And that's funny.
But if that's what you want me to do with it, I'll start carrying it and I will start beating it up and using it as a everyday use kind of knife.
And the big difference with something like this versus a couple of those cheaper knives, mind you, the Groman one they had there is actually not bad, but these are actually built extremely well. They're built by the same folks, at least this knife was designed by the same folks who are responsible for the S.A.K company. They're just very good at building hard use, long lasting folders and fixed blades. And these are knives that have a pretty good reputation of lasting 10, 20 years so long as you don't actually do things you shouldn't do with knives, like try and pry doors open or whatever. I dare say that's about everything to be covered on this video. Thank you for your participation. Father H.O.G.
Well, I think I'm going to cut out of here. And
God.
I'm going to see you on the flip side.
Oh my God. You've been saving these up.
No, this is just winging.
Gross.
Hey, you got to throw a few lame dad jokes in here, right?
Yeah,
It's
you held
Father's
back.
Day, so hey, I can get away with it. I'm allowed.
Yeah, you held back well. All right, super.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
No, good. We'll bring you back to find out what you thought about that, and we'll get that back on Hog Mom's keychain. And thanks again. So for now, this is the Hard on Gear channel signing off.